when my friend John told me about the great deal he found on a huge house in the countryside. I jumped at the chance to move in with him. After a messy breakup, I was in need of an escape from the city. The pictures John showed me made the old Victorian look charming. Spacious rooms, beautiful woodwork, and acres of land for a nice price. It seemed too good to be true. We signed the lease and moved our things upstate that weekend. As we pulled down the long dirt driveway, I was already having second thoughts. The house loomed ahead, dark gables jutting sharply against the overcast sky. Paint was peeling in curls from the siding. Porch boards sagged under a layer of dust. A creeping sense of unease tightened in my gut, yet John was ecstatic, bouncing out of the moving van. "It just needs some love. You'll see," he grinned, shouldering past the warped front door. My feet dragged as I took in the musty interior. Heavy curtains blocking what little light tried to penetrate thick layers of grime on the windows. Cobwebs clung to every corner like mourning veils. John babbled on about renovation plans, not seeming to notice the darkness pressing in on all sides. As we made our way through each dusty room, assessing necessary repairs, strange creaks and bumps echoed through the big empty house. John brushed off my unease with reassurances of old house sounds, but I couldn't shake the growing feeling of being watched from some hidden corner. Something didn't want us here. That night, as we tried drifting off on blow-up mattresses in the unsettling silence, my overactive mind conjured faces in the shadowy walls, peering down with gleaming eyes. The weeks that followed held odd occurrences I couldn't quite pin to rational explanations. Cupboard doors would creak open, though no cat or rodent scurried past. Faint whispers drifted down from the attic like a mournful lament on the wind. Strange presences seemed to lurk just out of sight, brushing past in shivery breaths on the back of my neck. John swore I was losing it, blaming my jumpy nature on too many late-night horror films. But I knew something wasn't right in our old Victorian home. It was the knocking that began in the dead of night, which cemented my fears as reality. Low, methodical raps echoed through closed bedroom doors, repeatedly waking me from fitful dreams. My blood ran cold each time as chilling chills radiated through the walls, seeming to seep from an unknown source down very foundations. The last straw came when I saw ghostly fingers curl around my doorframe one night, beckoning me into darkness with a skeletal hand. Packing frantically at dawn's light, I begged John to see reason and come away with me. He pinched the bridge of his nose, labeling me paranoid from stress of the move. When footsteps began descending the attic stairs, I fled in terror, leaving him amid the oppressive shadows, unwilling to accept what dwelled within our home. In the following weeks, John refused my calls, though messages became frantic. Then, one fateful night, the police arrived at my door with news of John's demise in our cursed house. They found him collapsed at the foot of the attic stairs, pale as death with eyes open in horror at something that climbed swiftly down from that dreaded hovel above. Medical examiners were baffled, claiming no natural cause. Only deep traumas of unseen assault upon his psychic well-being. I knew the truth of what lurked in that old Victorian estate, what entities refused to release their hold over the land and all who dwell there. They say the house stands abandoned now, yet sometimes at night when the moon hangs high, I swear I hear weeping on the lonely wind. A lament for souls who never left, an eternal longing to claim new victims under their rotting roof once more. It was just another typical Friday night for me. I had finished up a long week at the office and was looking forward to unwinding at home for the weekend. After stopping at the grocery store to pick up some essentials, I pulled into the driveway as the sun was beginning to set. As I brought in the few bags of food, I noticed nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The house was quiet and still. I shrugged off an uneasy feeling, blaming it on my fatigue from a busy work week. After putting everything away, I settled onto the couch to catch up on some shows I had recorded. A few episodes in, I began to grow weary. The sunlight had long faded, enveloping the house in darkness, except for the glow of the television. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes for a moment, embracing the silence. That's when I heard it. A soft creak coming from upstairs. My eyes snapped open, but I remained motionless, listening intently. A bored groaned somewhere above me. A chill ran down my spine as sudden dread washed over me. Someone was in my home. Slowly and silently, I rose from the couch. My heart hammered in my chest as I crept towards the hall, peering up the staircase bathed in shadows. Another creak caused me to freeze in place. I knew I had to arm myself, but going to the kitchen meant passing directly under the second floor. Taking a quiet breath, I inched along the wall towards the back of the house. As I reached the entry, a dark shape emerged at the top of the stairs. I caught a glimpse of a hooded figure before they noticed me as well. Adrenaline shooting through me, I bolted for the kitchen, scrambling to find a weapon. My hands grasped the nearest object, a canister of pepper spray left over from a self-defense class. Just as I grabbed it, heavy footfalls thundered down the stairs. I whirled around to see the intruder leaping towards me, a menacing look in their eyes. Without hesitation, I deployed the spray directly at their face. A guttural scream pierced the air as the assailant reeled back, clutching at their burning features. I didn't wait to see the effect, instead sprinting past them towards the front door. My hands fumbled with the locks in a panic, flinging it open just as another hoarse yell rang out behind me. Finally escaping onto the porch, I scrambled down the front steps and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. Within minutes, police cars arrived with lights flashing. Flooding the neighborhood with red and blue, officers apprehended my wood. The attacker, who was still on the lawn, howling in pain. As the paramedics treated them, I recounted the events to the investigating detectives. They searched the house but found no other intruders. The suspect was taken into custody, though their identity and motives remained unknown to me. Apparently, they had broken in through an unlocked back window while I was away. I was left shaken to my core, but thankful to be alive. In the aftermath, I installed an alarm system and upgraded my exterior locks, taking no chances. My sense of security in my own home had been shattered. For nights afterward, every creak and bump caused me to startle violently. I knew the mental scars of such a traumatic experience wouldn't fade easily. While still rattled, I tried to take comfort that the intruder was behind bars where they belong. My home no longer felt quite as safe as it once had, but I vowed not to be a prisoner of fear inside its walls. Time, I hoped, would help heal the lingering wounds, both physical and psychological. It was a harrowing ordeal I pray never to relive, a traumatic home invasion that continues to haunt my memories to this day. When my landlord informed me he would be renting out the empty rooms in our spacious old house, I hardly paid it much mind. Extra income was welcome, and I valued my solitude in the sprawling Victorian home. Little did I know the new tenants would turn out to be far stranger than any living folk. The first peculiar incident was only a few nights after the new boarders arrived. Awakened by creaks and murmurs drifting down from the floors above, I crept upstairs with a flashlight to investigate. The house stood eerily silent in response, not a soul stirring from either of the occupied bedrooms. Shrugging it off as an overactive imagination, I returned to my rooms reassured. But strange occurrences only grew more frequent. Footsteps paced the hallways in the dead of night when all residents slept soundly. Doors swung open and shut of their own accord. Phantom voices carried on whispers just beyond hearing. At first, I dismissed such oddities as tricks of the mind in an old, settling house. Yet convincing myself became harder with each passing day. The final straw came one stormy night as thunder shook the windows. Awoken once more by unearthly noises, I gathered my courage to search out the source. Faint sloshing and pounding drifted downstairs from the attic, as if some unseen creature roamed amid the stored possessions. Gripping my light tight, I flung open the trapdoor and climbed carefully upward into the musty reaches. There, in the flickering beam, a dark form seemed to ripple and shift amongst the shadows like thick mist. Two glimmering orbs regarded me from the featureless face, as phantom hands clutched a long-forgotten picture frame. Words formed visibly before me without sound. Let us stay. Paralyzed in terror, I watched the apparition slowly fade into the rafters until only emptiness remained. Scrambling back down with haste, I crashed into my landlord on the staircase with a yelp. Upon recounting my shocking encounter in the attic, realization struck him like lightning. The old house stood on ancestral burial grounds, and it seemed some past residents never fully left. Yet he assured me the spirits meant no harm, merely seeking shelter like any living soul. Their presence explained countless odd sounds over the decades. While unsettled, I accepted the ghosts as explained neighbors sharing our dwelling. Life continued as normal, mysterious events becoming commonplace. One apparition took to roaming the attic while another paced the east wing after dark. Their flowing forms caused no distress, merely curious observers of our daily lives. In time, I even grew accustomed to their otherworldly company, lingering at the edges of sight. All was well until strange mishaps began plaguing the house with increasing frequency and intensity. Lights flickered and burst without cause. Doors slammed so hard frames splintered. Violent pounding shook the walls at all hours as if begging for release. Cold spots formed where grisly shadows gathered, exuding malice unlike our placid spirits. The friendly ghosts avoided these darker presences, bearing a warning in their fleeting faces. Evil had taken root in our abode, and its cursed influence spread rapidly. Objects flew across rooms, narrowly missing flesh. Gravelly voices cursed and jeered in the dead of night, curdling the blood. One unlucky boarder vanished without trace, never to be seen again. Pandemonium reigned as the friendly ghosts fought a losing battle to keep spirits at bay. Something foul had awoken, and it would not rest until claiming our souls as well. With sinking dread, I realized the disturbances centered around a sealed cellar door long gathering dust and cobwebs. Whatever ancient evil slumbered below had stirred, pulled from its ageless slumber by some unholy force. With little choice left, I gathered allies among the benign ghosts to face the lurking horrors once and for all. On the decrepit door, we converged at midnight under a writhing sky, readying ourselves for the battle to come. With strength born of desperation, the rotting timber was shouldered aside to reveal a stairway into the lightless subterranean depths. An unearthly shriek unlike any mortal sound split the air, shaking loose dust and primal fears long dormant. Whatever lurked below had been roused, and its rage knew no bounds. Gripping tools of iron and salt, we ventured into the abyss together, living and dead united against the terrors of the past. The war for our home had begun. As a new night security guard at the historic Marshall Hotel, I was wary of the rumors surrounding its supposedly haunted halls. Built in the 1890s, it had borne witness to numerous tragic events over the decades that left their spectral marks. My colleagues warned of doppelgangers in the mirrors, mysterious weeping in room 12, and other such unexplained occurrences they had experienced during long nights alone. I admit the dilapidated building possessed an eerie atmosphere once the sun sank below the skyline. Creaking floorboards and shifting shadows kept me on edge as I began my patrols. Still, I remained a skeptic needing solid proof before believing in otherworldly apparitions. My first few shifts passed uneventfully, with only ordinary sounds of an aging structure to disturb the silence. It wasn't until one fateful midnight that I encountered something not so easily explained. Making my rounds of the dusty ballroom, a peculiar noise stopped me in my tracks. A wispy scrap of a melody drifting through the air. Following the haunting tune, I tracked it to a narrow service stairwell tucked away in shadows. Descending carefully, the melody grew clearer on the underground level. Peering around the dark basement, my flashlight's beam revealed an unconscious form sprawled limply on the damp concrete. Rushing over, I gasped to find the crumpled maid's uniform stained dark with blood. Frantically searching for signs of life, my fingers found no pulse beneath ice, cold flesh. As I recoiled in horror, a piercing shriek rent the air that chilled me to my very soul. Bolting back up the stairwell, I glimpsed the faintest glow in the depths where no light source should exist. My instincts screamed to flee that cursed place, yet morbid curiosity compelled seeking answers to the girl's gruesome demise. Returning with backup, we discovered only an empty basement void of any remains. From that night forward, whispered rumors of Room 14 and its tragic past would haunt my shifts. One quiet evening, a peculiar tapping drew me to the locked door of the notorious room. Peering through the cracked wood, I witnessed a breeze ruffle curtains, oddly despite sealed windows. A shadow passed behind linen drapes the color of bone before vanishing like wisps of smoke. That was all the proof needed to crack my skepticism about this hotel's phantoms. Something unearthly indeed lingered within these walls. An unusual request came the following week from a production company wishing to film a documentary within the hotel's infamous Room 14. Having witnessed its spectral activity personally, I was less than eager to unleash its tormented resident on more victims. Still, money talked in my debt-ridden situation, so I reluctantly provided after hours' access. Huddled with the camera crew during an eerie midnight shoot, noises soon had us jumping at every creak. An icy breeze curled around my neck, though doors and windows held fast shut. Lights flickered without explainable cause. Just as the producer declared it a night, a blood-curdling scream thundered from the bedroom. Rushing inside, we found a disheveled cameraman collapsed on the floorboards, clutching his throat and wheezing unintelligible pleas. Red lines marred his flesh as if viciously clawed by unseen hands. Frantic calls for an ambulance could not erase the utter terror etched upon his pallid features. From that evening on, rumors swirled of a vengeful spirit attacking any who dared disturb its solitude within Room 14. The hotel owners refused further access, hoping isolating the room may quell its rage. Yet its presence could still be felt, a looming darkness seeping through the walls. In my final week on the job, a desperate call summoned me to the upper floors late one night. Reported noises of a struggle emanating from a room sent my heart racing as I threw open the door with master key in hand. Dim moonlight penetrated grimy windows, revealing two writhing silhouettes locked in a violent grapple upon the bed. Both figures froze at my entrance, dissolving into featureless voids before my very eyes. I bolted from that cursed place and never looked back, haunted by the lingering question. Which shadows were human, and which merely lingering question? Which shadows were human, and which merely lingering souls unable to depart this earthly plane? The spirits of Room 14 were not so easily banished. It seemed still claiming victims under the drifting deadlights of the infinite dark.